Hello and welcome to Talking Books. I'm Jill de Villiers. Today we're shifting the emphasis to photography with a magnificent tribute to people who have lived their lives on Mozambique Island. There is a Mozambican proverb that says, when an elderly person dies, a library vanishes. The book we're talking about today tells the stories of the island's elderly inhabitants through photographs and interviews. The author is Moira Forjaz, and the book is Islanders, Ilheus, Ilha de Mocambique. Thank you for joining us, Moira.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
To chat about this book. The photography is absolutely magnificent.
Wow.
It is
I'm
just
overwhelmed.
stunning. We are going to show the viewers as we are chatting. We'll show them some of the photographs. And I just want to point out right at the beginning of the interview that the quality is not going to be the exact quality that you will see in the book. So if you want to see the real quality of it, you need to look in the book. But you'll get an idea of the photographs and how you tell these stories. So let's start about the island. You are living on the island at the moment?
I'm living on the island. I've been there for 7 years now. And I can say that I am an inhabitant of the island because it's quite stressful. Not stressful, that's not the right word. It's difficult because you're quite isolated. It's a tiny island, but that's where I want to be. And I'm very happy to be there.
Why and when did you decide to actually make the move to island life?
Yes, I on and off for many, many years I've lived in Mozambique, and always very happily. For the first 10 years I was living there, I became a photographer. I dabbled in photography before then, worked with some wonderful photographers, and then went to live in Mozambique. And for many years. And then I was away for some personal reasons for 8 years, and then came back regularly to Mozambique. And then I decided I wanted to live there, but I don't like the city very much. I don't like Maputo. And I'd been 5 or 6 times to the island. I actually have a book, my very first book, which was published in 1982. And that, was the beginning of my love for the island. And there have been several phases of that. Things were difficult. There was a war at that time, a civil war, which was very difficult. And I never went back. And as soon as I could, I was 70, and I decided I would go back and live there.
So the book, what impressed me so much about the photographs is how candid they are. And I was sitting there thinking, but how do you reach these people? How do you get so close to them that they allow you to tell their stories with such depth and such honesty?
Thank you for that question. Yes. When I first arrived on the island, I decided I couldn't quite adjust to the small, very tiny social life, and I had to find really something to do. So right from the very beginning I would find myself gravitating to the area where these people live, which is one would call the hut area, Makuti area. And bit by bit I got to know people through a woman that was working for me, Amina. She actually appears in the book. And she took me to quite a few events which normally a white person wouldn't find themselves privileged enough to be at. Initiations and things like that, it was fantastic. And I got more and more interested in the people, though I did other things at the same time. And then the more I got used to and knowing the people, I realized that a generation was disappearing. The elderly were dying off, and I was talking to them, and I thought to myself, yes, I want to document them. At first I thought it would just be photographs, and then it was absolutely normal and natural that it should become their stories, not only mine. So
so it started with the photographs and then the interviews.
First, of course, because at first I just was photographing them, and then talking, getting to know quite a few people, including Amina, who was working with me, so as a helper a few times a week. But we became very good friends, And so that's how it happened. And it did start with photography, and but progressed to interviews.
Now, they look so natural. Generally, when you take a camera out, you put it on a person, they change.
Yes,
and they become somebody else. They're not authentic anymore. But you captured the authentic people. That is what is so fascinating.
Yeah, they did trust me, you see, in the end. I mean, right from the beginning, because, you know, I lived many years in Mozambique, and I understand the way people are. And I was very careful not to steal a photograph, you know. So they were aware of me taking the photographs. They really
so
were.
Technically, technically, how did you go about taking these photographs?
I have a camera called a Nikon DF. It's a fantastic camera for me, because for a long time I didn't take photographs except with my iPhone, because I couldn't get used to the digital camera after having used analogic all my life, you know. So I was given this as a gift from my son, actually, this particular camera. And he said, "No more excuses, Mom, get on with it," which I did. And it looks and behaves exactly like, it's a manual, it can be used completely manually. And I only had one lens, a 50mm lens, no tripod. I didn't come in with anything that looked foreign.
All natural light.
Totally natural lighting, no flash, no lighting, and you know, just they were not intimidated by me, because it's a small camera. It didn't have a long lens, you know, so they were comfortable with that. I'm sure that was what happened, because very often people come in with these big lenses and they point them, and then they immediately get into this position with the fingers and the signs and whatever it is, and I wasn't looking for that. So it took time. It took time, that's for sure.
One of your mentors was David Goldblatt.
Yes.
To what extent did he influence you?
Well, I knew him from very early on. I was about 20 when I met him. And we actually shared a studio together in Johannesburg before I left. I was at art school, and we shared a studio. And we were friends, family friends. I knew him through other friends of mine. And he did influence me, but he didn't know that he was influencing me, because he influenced me more by his ways of being. I followed him. I went on one or two tiny shoots with him. I could see the way he treated things, and but he never interfered. With my first book, my book from 2015 on Mozambique, he knows so much about making books, you know, and choosing. It's very difficult sometimes to choose the right photograph. And this one was amazing, this book, because he saw the photographs already printed, the originals, and he just said, "Do it." He said, "Go ahead." And I said, "It's, you know, will I manage? You know, I'm not sure I will." He said, "Do it." And actually, I didn't mention this before. I saw him quite a bit before he passed on, and the last 2 days before, he wanted to see something of the book. It was already quite advanced. And I said I didn't have my computer with me, but I had my iPhone. And if he wanted, he could look. And he was very frail. And he looked at the photographs. And at the end, he looked at me and he said, "Silly woman, you know what? Why have you chosen a square format when the book is not square? Your photographs are all horizontal. Change it." And I did.
And the result is
excellent,
beautiful.
because the photographs became bigger, and so he really did influence me in the end, because I took his advice completely. And And he was a very special friend. Very special friend,
Wonderful.
even with the first book.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about your subject matter as well, the elderly people and the hard lives that they lived. And it's so refreshing and good to see somebody taking the elderly seriously and acknowledging them for what they've achieved. Tell me a little bit about their lives.
You know, it's a matriarchal society. You could almost say the sufferers are the males in that time, in that period, not anymore, because things have changed a lot. But the men worked very hard for the women. They worked on the land, they worked construction, whatever there was to do, or they worked away, or they went migrants and would come back every now and then, but not very much from the island. And the women have always been quite beautiful. They are slim, beautiful women, and very coquette, and very, very provocative, you know. They, if you see in the book, if you read all the stories, you'll see that the women made their own choices of men, always decided that they would have that husband, and husband meant Ikai. They would marry through the religion. Very few of them were married by the state. How do you say that?
Officially, I don't.
Officially, you know, state official marriages, and they would divorce quite easily and move on to the next person. But mostly, they really are very, very vain, I would say. All of them, even the young ones today, are extremely vain. I mean, they spend a lot of time on themselves. Sometimes one of the things I'm hoping in this, I have a new project coming up, and I'm hoping that we can help some of these women to be more aware of their children, you know, to take better care and not spend so much time on themselves, and really try to teach them, not me, of course I would never do this, but people around me, the local people who want to try to improve the situation with children on the island, that are quite, in many ways, are quite neglected.
Oh, shame. That's Moira, I'd love to chat to you a lot longer, but we've reached the end of our show already. I just want to tell our viewers that the book is very well worth it. The photographs are absolutely stunning and amazing, and the stories are fascinating. So on both levels, the stories and the photographs, it is really well worth acquiring this book. The author is Moira Forjaz, and the book is Islanders, Ilheus, Ilha de Mocambique. And that was it for this edition of Talking Books. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.